Your Sam linebacker, Damone Clark.
Who? They didn't have an identity last year. They traded away Micah Parsons like days before the season opener.
If they're an average defense, the Cowboys are going to be a playoff team. That's all they got to do.
Hello, welcome to Football X's and O's. We'll be talking about that new look Cowboys defense after a dreadful 2025 season. I'm Ryan Steele. Alongside me is NFL expert David Scott. David, the Cowboys, they finally did some moves defensive-wise because after that dreadful season, they had to do something.
Yeah, I think they're looking a lot better this year. If they just take a few steps forward, I think we're looking at a playoff team.
All right, let's get started. We'll talk about that 2025 season. They were just dreadful. One of the worst, if not the worst defense in the league. Just no pass rush. Nowhere to go really on defense, and the offense always had to do something, and the defense would just never respond. It was always high-scoring games. So you got to start and tell us what was wrong with that Cowboys defense last year.
Yeah, as you were saying, the offense had to do a lot of heavy lifting because it felt like every single game was a shootout. They had to win purely by putting up 35 points at least, and obviously you can't win every game when that's the factor. The big problem was the secondary. They were just allowing massive passing performances from just about anybody. I mean, the most damning stat is that Russell Wilson threw 450 yards against that Cowboys defense. So if he's doing that in the year 2025 while wearing Giants blue, then you got a problem. And it was just constant, over and over again. Every team was just taking advantage of that secondary because you're going to get good passing plays if the defense can't get any pressure on you. That's the first problem. And then the secondary just doesn't know how to play football, so that's another big problem. And so every team is just scoring 30-plus points on you. It was a nightmare.
And they didn't have the pass rush. Obviously, they traded away Micah Parsons to the Packers, so no one was getting sacks. So they finally traded for Quinnen Williams, and you started to see some, good things, but then it just went back to the same defense that we saw earlier in the year. What did you see towards the end? It was obviously defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. You think he played a major role in their, obviously failures on that unit?
Yeah, I think from scheme to personnel decisions, just all around, it was an organizational failure. And I think that the Cowboys defense has been like that for the past couple seasons. And I think we're starting to take a step in the right direction. But last year, all around, you could point to any face in the building and probably say, hey, you're to blame for this defense. Everyone except the offense, I guess.
So they went 7-9-1 in spite of that defense. So they fire Eberflus. They hire Christian Parker. That was an Eagles coach, defensive backs coach, and he's 34 years old. He's going to be running that defensive coordinator position. What do you like out of him? What do you like in terms of his style of play that we saw in Philly to go to Dallas now?
Well, what I really like is that they're changing up the defensive formation. The Cowboys for the last, umpteen years, however many you can think, have been running a 4-3 defense. And a 4-3 defense is really going to prioritize stopping the run game, getting some good pressure, not very versatile. They're switching it to a 3-4, so you're getting less pressure in that run game, but it should give you some more exotic looks, more help in the secondary, really an entire defensive mindset change. And I think that's something that the Cowboys need. When you have such a bad year like that, you got to just do a reset. Just hit the button, start over, and I think switching formations is a really good idea.
So obviously Parker specializes in defensive backs as well. And during the offseason, the Cowboys, we said it earlier, they made a lot of additions. They got Rashan Gary, Jalen Thompson, safety that was on the Arizona Cardinals, and then the draft. I mean, Caleb Downs, they found a way to pick him, and then Malachi Lawrence. The list goes on. 5 of their 7 picks were defensive on that, in the class. So talk to me about the guys that they added in the offseason and what you liked from it.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job in the offseason, prioritizing the secondary. That's a huge deal. You get a guy like Caleb Downs, who you could argue is a top 3, top 2 player in this draft class. You get him down at number 10, 11. That's incredible. And then bringing in some more pass rush, which you really need. Malachi Lawrence, very underrated player. Great athleticism, though. Big riser towards the end of the draft season. Ends up being a first-round pick for them. And then, again, more help in the safety position. So I think they're boosting themselves where they need to. The defensive lineup is going to look much different. The starting lineup in 2025 to the starting lineup in 2026, I believe there's only 2 players returning to that starting lineup. They've really shifted things around. Some younger guys are stepping up into those positions. They're doing the right thing, changing their defensive mentality from the formation to the personnel to the youth. That's exactly what you need.
So great segue. Show us what the Cowboys defense in 2026 is going to look like.
Okay, So let's start by looking at what the Cowboys did in 2025. This is your 4-3 defense. Now I'm going to run through their starting lineup from the game 1 of the 2025 season with the players in there. We'll go position to position to show you what a 4-3 defense looks like, talk about who was at the position, and then we'll go to the 3-4 defense, show you what's changed, see the players that have changed. So 4-3, what that is, you got 4 on the line, 3 linebackers. Pretty simple. 3-4, take a guess. 3 on the line, 4 linebackers. Look at that. We're doing math. Awesome. So on your baseline here, we have one player who is the same on the defensive line. That's Kenny Clark, our nose tackle. Pretty solid nose tackle. He deserves to continue to be on this defense. But look, your left defensive end, Sam Williams. Your right defensive end, Dante Fowler. So those guys are gone. And then in your linebacker positions, you've got at the will linebacker, we had Jack Sanborn. Who? Your Mike linebacker, Kenneth Murray. Who? Your Sam linebacker, Damone Clark.
Who?
And then you go into we had Malik Hooker at strong safety. We know who that is. And then free safety, Donovan Wilson. We know who that is. And then our corners, Kyer Elam and Deron Bland. Bland is one of the only other players who remains in the starting lineup going into 2026. So our personnel was a big problem to start. Not great names in that personnel. And then this 4-3 defense, we're trying to stuff up the run lanes in this. We're going to get pressure on the quarterback. That's fine. Our secondary play is tough. Now, you look at this and you see 2 cornerbacks. Obviously, there's usually going to be more than 2 corners on the field. This is just a base 4-3 defense. And we're going to show you a base 3-4 defense. We're not going to do anything crazy and switch up the way certain things look. But, all right. Look at how easy that was. We're in a 3-4 defense now. Only difference is now you got 2 edges, a nose tackle, 2 inside linebackers, 2 outside linebackers. Tiny shift allows you to do some different things with your defense. But to start, let's look at the names that we have now and how much better this is. Our left defensive end, Quinnen Williams. Oh, what a player. Nose tackle, Kenny Clark, great. Right defensive end, Jonathan Ballard, much improved. On the outside, Donovan Ezaraku, one of their second-round pick from 2025. Demarion Overshawn on the inside linebacker. D. Winters on the inside linebacker. Outside linebacker, it's going to be Rashan Gary or Malachi Lawrence. Lawrence was their first-round pick. Rashan Gary, they signed this year. Going to be one of those guys. Maybe they'll rotate it. I don't know. Secondary, Caleb Downs. Oh. Wow, what a player. Jalen Thompson, great addition. Deron Bland, he was there last year. Siobhan Revel, one of their picks from last year. This is hugely improved. This is awesome. And now we've got the versatility of let's bring our outside linebackers down for some pressure. Let's send them out into coverage. We could do so many different things in a 4-3 defense that is not only going to bring some more confusion to the opposing offense, but also just a little bit more stability, I think. I think a 3-4 defense, I think less can go wrong. I don't know why. It's just when you got your 4 linebackers, it gives you more to work with in terms of just not allowing that big play. And I think the big play through the passing game was what the Cowboys gave up a lot last year. Let's settle things down. Let's bring out our 3-4 defense with our nice new playmakers. I think we're looking at a huge step forward for the Cowboys defense.
Yeah, they could be more versatile in that 3-4 defense. And I think they have now an identity. They didn't have an identity last year. They traded away Micah Parsons like days before the season opener. And you have Caleb Downs, who has the IQ of this game. He's a veteran, like the way his IQ is. You could just think he's a veteran of the game. And you got Revel Jr., who had a lot of games. He was out last year with the injury, and Bland only played 12 games. So obviously guys have to stay healthy, but I feel like they finally have an identity. Look, we're not saying they're going to be a top 10 defense, top 5 defense, but last year they didn't have identity, and they're one of the worst last year. You can make the argument they could be top 20, maybe an average defense. Obviously it's going to be hard with the Eagles in that division, the Giants up and coming, but man, I feel like they finally have that identity on defense they didn't have last year.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch what they do with Caleb Downs up here, because I look at him as more of a box safety. Now, he's going to play that strong safety position, but he has the ability to come storming down the field and either get pressure on the quarterback, get some sacks, or help stuff up those run lanes. They've got a lot of players in here that I think have exceptional abilities to take huge step forwards this year to get them to that average defense point or even beyond. Listen, if they're an average defense, the Cowboys are going to be a playoff team. That's all they got to do.
I mean, why not a Super Bowl contender? I know I should probably pump the brakes, but man, they won 7 games. It could have been 8, obviously, that tie against the Packers, but they almost won 8 games with that dreadful defense. I mean, they could win 10, 11, maybe 12 games this year. That defense, though, that's the thing where if they're average or so, they should be a playoff contender and possibly more. We saw the Eagles last year. They were inconsistent last year. And the Giants, they're still, we don't know we know their additions, but we still have to see it on the field. Because let's face it, the Cowboys always have the Giants number. And obviously Washington coming off that bad season too. So Cowboys, Super Bowl contender, what do you say? You said playoff, but maybe Super Bowl contender. Is that maybe in the realm of possibilities?
There's certainly an opportunity. I mean, listen, if this defense can hold opponents to 24 points a game, 21 to 24 points a game, they're going to win a lot of football games. That offense last year was averaging 30, around 30. So you play at an average rate, just average. You can even play a little bit below average, and this team is going to make it into the playoffs. If they play average to good, sky's the limit for the Cowboys.
Now, what's the thing that worries you the most in terms of this defense? We're talking a lot about the positives, but is there anything like negative that you say maybe they didn't address too much, in free agency or the draft? Anything that really stands out to you that maybe something bad could happen in the upcoming season?
I'm still going to worry about the cornerback position. I think the corners, while they are solid players, like you said earlier, the injury concerns, Siobhan Revel did not play all that often. Clark also had some issues. So I think they need to be healthy and they need to prove that they can stay on the field. At the same time, I think this is a prime position for the Cowboys to make either a preseason move to bring in someone strong or maybe a trade deadline move if they're looking good and want to beef up during the season. So the cornerback position is where I'm going to be the most concerned. I like what we're doing in the box now. I think we're much improved there for the Cowboys, and they look better now that they've adapted without Micah Parsons. If the corners step up, they play well, they stay on the field, that's really going to help with that. But again, we had issues with them last year. If we see them on the field, that's going to be that's going to give me some confidence, and Revel is going to be a huge part of that.
Yeah, I think as long as they stay healthy, they should be top 15, top 20, but we're going to see what happens in the upcoming season. All right, that's going to wrap things up here at Football X's and O's. You can watch us every Monday. We also have other off-season content. Please like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you think of the Cowboys' new look defense.